President Trump took the world to the brink of a massive war in the Middle East. He was talking about essentially a clash of civilizations. This is something that Americans woke up to this morning. A whole civilization will die tonight, he said, never to be brought back again. We haven't heard rhetoric like this from a president, I don't think, ever, where he's essentially said this is a battle and a clash of civilizations. It was ideological through and through, and I think it shocked Americans. And it set off here a real drama here at the White House. And in fact, the Vice President, J.D. Vance, was in Europe today, and he made some comments in this febrile climate. He said that there were other tools that President Trump hadn't yet called on in Iran. That was interpreted by many people as suggesting the nuclear option. And so the White House press office, Caroline Levitt, whose office is just behind me there next to the Oval Office, she actually told the ABC, she told our team and other media, that in fact President Trump, that President Trump had got the Pakistan proposal. And she also put out earlier, she had to try to put out a statement saying that the president was not considering a nuclear option. Now, if you'd said a year ago that the White House would be having to put out a statement saying that the President of the United States was not considering a nuclear bomb on Iran, nobody would have believed you. Even in Hollywood, that would have been seen as such a crazy script. And yet this morning, when I saw the President talking about a whole civilization will die tonight, I thought his account must have been hacked. No, it was the real Donald Trump, but he has now stepped back from the brink, and we are not going to see, at least for 2 weeks, we are not going to see Iran's civilian infrastructure, desalination plants, power plants, electricity, bridges. We're not going to see them all destroyed at the order of the man who works in the office behind me.
And so in doing that, agreeing to this extension there, how is Donald Trump or the White House framing this?
They're framing it as that Iran has come forward with a 10-point plan that is workable. In that same, I think, unhinged social media contribution, I think it's fair to say it was unhinged when you talk about civilizations dying tonight. He did go on to say, the second part of it was that now that we have complete and total regime change in Iran, which we don't, by the way, where different, smarter and less radicalized minds prevail, something revolutionarily wonderful can happen. So in the same tweet that he's talking about that whole civilization, the Iranian and Persian civilization dying, he's saying that their leadership is more moderate. This is mixed messages is a polite way to put it, but they are now saying that we've achieved our military aims, the United States, and the Iranians now have agreed for 2 weeks to open the Strait of Hormuz, which became America's latest demand. And so the Americans are able to say that they're achieving something. But the reality is that Iran's regime, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, remains in control of Iran. That's not disputable. And they've managed to keep close the Strait of Hormuz. So in that sense, they've had two major victories. But on the other side, the Israelis and the Americans have undoubtedly seriously hit the military capability of Iran. They will pose less of a threat to the region because of those 11,000 or so bombing sorties that the Americans and the Israelis have executed over the last 5 weeks.
John, how has Iran responded to this development?
Well, Iran is saying that they welcome any opportunity for peace, and they're now saying that this is a chance for over 2 weeks to discuss the detail. But this is not necessarily going to be over quickly. This is not going to be an easy longer-term peace. While the immediate hostilities have stopped, Iran has tasted the power of being able to alter the world's energy market. The farmer in the outback in Townsville and Rockhampton and Orange, they're all paying more fuel prices now, despite the Australian Prime Minister's efforts to subsidise it. They're paying more, so are American citizens, because Iran managed to close the Strait of Hormuz, and they've set up a system now that they will approve some ships to come through and some won't. And they've got a taste for it. They want to actually establish tolls now on ships coming through. That's going to be a real crunch point with the United States. The Americans don't want Iran to have continuing control over that Strait of Hormuz. So that's going to be the next battle, either a military battle or a political and diplomatic battle.
So, John, what happens over the next 2 weeks, and will the Strait of Hormuz be opened further?
Well, the Iranians, that's part of the deal. They have said that they will open it, and I'm sure they'll want to go ahead and try to, over the next 2 weeks, do what they're required to do to get those 2 weeks reprieve of bombing. But now the Americans and the Iranians, perhaps the Israelis, will meet in Pakistan. The Vice President J.D. Vance will oversee what's going on. He may not physically be there, but he will be in charge. He's been deputed to be in charge. He'll report directly to President Trump as to whether or not there is a viable longer-term peace deal. Meanwhile, the IRGC in Tehran is going to work out whether they think it's worth keeping their pressure on Donald Trump, or they think it's worth having a longer-term peace.